Welcome to the Prana Show. I'm your host, Louise Balodi.
And I'm Alan Balodi.
I'm Isabella Sarah Balodi. And I'm Gabrielle Letzo Balodi.
Carolyn Dean, the Doctor of the Future, is the author of 110 Kindle books and 33 health books covering a wide variety of topics including the Magnesium Miracle and atrial fibrillation, remineralize your heart. Dr. Dean is on the medical advisory board of the nonprofit educational site Nutritional Magnesium Association. Her magnesium outreach has won her an award from the Heart Rhythm Society in the UK for outstanding medical contribution to cardiac rhythm management in 2012. Dr. Dean has a free online newsletter, a valuable online 2-year wellness program called Completement Now, and a 2-hour call-in radio show called Dr. Carolyn Dean Live at achieveradio.com, Mondays at 4 p.m. Pacific. Find out more at Dr. Dean's website, drcarolyndean.com, and learn about her life-giving completement formulas, RNA drops, Remag, Relight, Realign, and Renew at rnareset.com. Hi, Prana Boosters. Today's featured guest Prana Booster is Dr. Carolyn Dean. Hi, Carolyn.
Hi, Tina.
Thank you so much for being on Prana Boost Radio today. We're so grateful to have you here with us to share space and time, and it's so wonderful to connect with you today. I'm excited to talk with you about one of my favorite topics, which is alternative wellness and healing. And I'm thrilled to know that you are educated in such a holistic way, which includes Western medicine, but is not limited to only Western medicine. So, here's your book. I have your wonderful book, The Magnesium Miracle. And for me, it's been life-altering. It's been wonderful, but I'll get into that. I just wanted to let you know a little bit about me, why I even what turned me on to alternative, wellness at all. Right around my wedding, it was about 2002, and I was really struggling with many different health issues. Rashes and breathing issues, so many issues, and I would go to many different doctors, and I wasn't feeling heard, and I wasn't feeling better in any way, no matter what they told me, no matter what they did. So this caused me to lose confidence in their ability to basically know myself better than myself. I was relying on them to help me improve my life, and really I just realized that I was going to have to become my own health and wellness advocate. So not that I knew more than doctors, but that I was going to have to start doing some of my own homework and also tuning into what was contributing to why I was feeling the way that I was feeling. So to go a little bit deeper and investigate that. Mm-hmm. So I realized that I needed to take responsibility, for my own health and not just simply trust somebody who had a white jacket and, was a professional. And, it was interesting. They told me that I suffered from a thyroid disorder, and every doctor that I went to wanted to just give me a pill and told me I was going to be on it for life. And the biggest thing that got me was that they told me that I wasn't going to be able to get pregnant, or I wasn't going to have an easy time getting pregnant. So it's interesting because what happened was I joke that I got pregnant. I feel like sometimes just looking at my husband, like boom, it just happened like that. I didn't believe what they said, and you know what? It wasn't true. Mm-hmm. Both times I got pregnant very easily, and I had beautiful, healthy pregnancies. Not one problem, not one blood pressure issue, not one issue during my pregnancies. So I realized that, maybe I needed to take a bigger role in my own health because they were not accurate in what they told me, and I was very glad that I didn't, believe them. And so, obviously, later becoming a mom, I knew that I needed to take my family's care, their health and wellness into, our own hands and take some responsibility for it. And not just do it passively by going to the doctor or listening to what they say. And one of my hugest wake-up calls was when my daughter's pediatrician brought out a tray of vaccinations. Mm. And it was like 6 or 7 of them on the tray laid out like it was like some horror movie. I felt like just laid out on a paper towel, and I started to ask him some questions. Like something clicked in my mind, and he was kind of offended. He was kind of like, what? Why are you asking me anything? Like, you're supposed to just trust me automatically. And And I'm like, but wait a second. I'm like, you give those same, shots to every single child. And I was like, maybe we should take her blood first. And he's like, oh, I wouldn't want to do that. I wouldn't want to, prick her skin with a needle unnecessarily. And I was like, wait, you're about to do it with like 7 needles. But I didn't even know what I was talking about. I don't know if I had too much Grey's Anatomy or what. But I just knew that I was supposed to start speaking up, but I didn't know what to say. So I said, what are these, and can I see the package, and where, what are the names, and what are the ingredients? And his mind was blown. I think he just was not used to people questioning him. He went kind of into his ego, and he was really offended. And I told him, I said, I'm really not comfortable with it, but I don't know why, but I'm not going to do it today because I just feel unsure, but I don't know why. That's when I started to do research, and on, somehow, I don't know, I was divinely guided to have your book fall off the shelf in front of me, and I'm like, oh, what's this? And I started to read it, and I got right on board. I got magnesium flakes, and I started to do magnesium baths with my daughters and with, myself and my husband. And really, honestly, that's why I have you on today. I wanted you to explain what I started to learn about in your book, and to realize that something as simple as a mineral could actually help so many of us was just shocking to me.
Right. Well, that's a great overview of what is facing a lot of people, parents, consumers, patients. And what I know from going to medical school for all those years and afterwards doing my naturopathic training is medicine has become very much just looking for the disease that's causing a person's symptoms and matching a drug to that disease. It's got nothing to do with prevention or helping a person understand what's going on in their body. So in medical school, we were actually told, if you haven't learned something in medical school that comes at you from your patients or from the media, it's quackery. You can ignore everything but what you've learned in medical school. So right away, we were in this box. And as the box became tinier and tinier and more controlled by pharmaceutical company, either the drug salesman coming to you, the research funded by drug companies, the medical schools built by drug companies, the drug companies gave us our first doctor bag. I mean, everything was boxed into drugs. And even in medical school, when I spoke out and I said, well, what about drug side effects? And what about these articles I'm reading in various, not even natural magazines. I remember Penthouse magazine having a bit of an expose on drugs and drug side effects. This is back in the mid-70s. And my gosh, my colleagues, the students in class with me, drug companies are very ethical. They're not going to do anything that's going to harm people. And they were so on board, already brainwashed, and just kind of like what you're saying, Tina. I just knew this is not right. Now, I should say that before I went into medical school, I was already reading Prevention magazine. I was very interested in alternatives. I knew diet and exercise, and I wasn't even thinking about supplements back then. But back then, I knew there was something greater than just drugs. And I fully believe by this time, 35, 40 years later, that everybody would be on board, that every doctor would also be a naturopath, that every doctor would know acupuncture and homeopathy and herbal medicine. And when a person walked in, they would, scan the person and say, oh, you're under stress, you're working too hard. Here, take this prescription for a day off. Instead of giving a drug prescription, what about a prescription for a day off? A day at the spa. Tell your husband to do the dishes. I would write in the prescription, so-and-so's name. And I had a family practice, so usually the partner was also a patient. And I would get very focused on their whole life rather than the 7-minute appointment now in the HMOs where you walk in, And if it's primary care, I mean, I've had the experience going in with friends to doctors over here in Maui, where my friend would want a dermatology consult and be ready for their next colonoscopy. And, they'd be describing their skin. The doctor would be across the room. And we'd say, well, don't you want to examine my skin? Aren't you interested? They wouldn't even budge from their chair.
Wow.
They would be typing into their iPad and say, oh, no, the technician will come in and take a picture of your skin lesions, send it to dermatology, and they'll decide from the picture whether or not they're going to do a consult.
Oh, wow.
And to me, I mean, I just almost lost it, because how crazy is it that your primary care doctor has just become a robot for referrals?
Yes, and well, I do understand the importance of, Western medicine and pharmaceuticals, and I understand the need for them, but not as a first line of defense, not as that's just the go-to right away. That's the first thing that you do. And I think that's the craziest thing, and that's what I experienced. And it changed everything for us, just the fact that we started to question it. So I'm so grateful to you that you did as well. And we need those people who don't automatically, robotically, just like the doctors, walk in. And I think sometimes too is that people are afraid to speak up, but besides that, they're just okay. They're in acceptance that this is how it is.
Yes,
and I think that it takes people, to question things, like, well, gosh, that doesn't seem right, or that's really strange. You're not going to look at her skin, like, that's why she's here. Like, that's, there's so many stories like that. Yeah, and people just don't question it, so they just go through it.
But like you say, that snapped you.
Yeah.
It snapped me too, but that's where that snap comes, where you say, this isn't right, and then you look, and then thank goodness there's the internet. Now the internet has its flaws because there's way too much information. There's way too many contradictory bits of information. There's way too many health sites now that are run by drug companies. So people really have to be wary of looking for information about alternatives, and they'll start to subtly put down alternatives and say, well, you should listen to your doctor, and the drug therapy is really the most important. You have to really be aware of it's a $1 trillion industry, so they're not going to give up on it easily.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what I always say, if you Google something about health, and you get the first page, I would skip to like page 5 or 6 before I would start to read something, because the first ones are all like paid searches and people who have dominated the industry. And I don't know, I became so powerful. So I did have a problem when I had my first daughter, where I had to have an emergency C-section, and of course that wasn't my plan and that wasn't my intention. Right. But that's what happened, and I don't remember I think I was running a fever from all that chaos and everything. And so they took her to the NICU. And I couldn't believe it. I felt like they stole her. I was so upset that I'm like, what do you mean they took her? Like, and everyone's telling, I'm like, where is she? Where's my baby? And everyone's like, she's in the NICU. She's fine. And she's got a bracelet. And I'm like, I sent my husband, I said, you go, you do not leave her side. And a second I could put on a bathrobe, and now I had surgery, right? I said, you have to bring me upstairs. So I went in a wheelchair upstairs, and I said, I'm going to get my child. I'm going to get my daughter. And boy, did I make a stink. But I thought that it was just very detrimental to both of us that she was not with me. And I also didn't like that they didn't explain why.
Yes.
And so that was really the first of my, that's it. I just became this mama bear, and I'm like, I'm going to start taking, a much big active interest in what we do as a family and how we handle our health. But I think here's the thing I want to remember, but I have the next question for you. But I want people to remember that even if you're skeptical, it's worth it to look into, because the second you experience some sort of healing, some sort of improvement or some sort of wellness, that's when you become a believer in other ways of healing. You know, I mean, you sort of sometimes need that proof for yourself, you know, but at least to be willing to be open, you know, to look into it is what matters. But going back to your book, The Magnesium Miracle, you know, in the introduction to your book, you share your story of being introduced to the miracle of magnesium in your second year of medical school when you observed a doctor treating a woman in labor.
Right.
Can you share a little bit with that?
Yes, that was pretty remarkable, because what happens in pregnancy, and I don't know if you experienced any of this, in pregnancy, if you don't have enough magnesium, you'll retain fluid, your blood pressure can go up, because magnesium relaxes the muscles, and if you don't have enough magnesium, your muscles get tight because you tend to have more calcium than magnesium. So you're tightening up your blood vessels, you can get high blood pressure. You're irritating your brain cells, because if you don't have enough magnesium to get rid of calcium, calcium will irritate your brain neurons, and you can actually get seizures.
Wow.
It's called eclampsia or preeclampsia. So there's fluid retention, you know, your ankles are swelling, everything's swelling up. You're getting high blood pressure, and you can even get seizures. Well, I came across this, it's in second year, just observing in the background, and then they said this woman was having these symptoms. Okay, yes, it's definitely eclampsia. And I thought, what are they going to do? They put up an intravenous magnesium solution in her IV drip, and everything calmed down and went away.
Wow.
And it shocked me so much, because I knew about magnesium. I'd already been reading natural health as much as I could. So I thought, oh my gosh, why aren't they using magnesium for high blood pressure in the non-pregnant population, for seizures, for fluid retention? And when I finally got to ask that question decades later, when I was in the office of a specialist, just doing an interview actually, I said, well, this patient in front of us, he was on 4 blood pressure medications, and his blood pressure was still elevated. And I said, what are you going to do now? And he said, well, this is where I use magnesium, and usually it works at this point. And I said, well, why don't you use it first? And, why don't you use it first? And they said, well, it's kind of like what we do. We start with the diuretics. A diuretic pulls out more minerals. A diuretic pulls out fluid, pulls out your minerals. And then we go to the calcium channel blockers. Yeah, they got that right, because you want to get rid of the calcium, but you can dissolve calcium and get rid of it with magnesium. So they're doing some things with the right theory, but then they use the drugs. So anyway, once you get on 3 and 4 blood pressure medications, you've really depleted your magnesium so much that as soon as they give the magnesium, it's like, oh, okay, and things improve. But then, the doctors just think the drugs finally worked. Or
it finally kicked in.
But then, see what happens when someone's on all those medications and you're losing your magnesium, your cholesterol will become elevated, because the enzyme that balances cholesterol requires magnesium to work properly. Your blood sugar will become elevated because of lack of magnesium. Even in the drug books, it says one of the signs of diabetes is magnesium deficiency.
Really?
Yes, really, really. But in medical school, we learn nothing about minerals and nothing about magnesium. So it's not on a doctor's mind to even test for magnesium. As well, the serum magnesium test is pretty invalid, because in your blood, in the serum, you only have 1% of your total body magnesium. It's all in the muscles and in your bones and in your membranes and tissues. So when you test in the blood, you're not going to find an accurate reading. So doctors think, well, every time I test magnesium, it looks normal to me, so They don't even bother testing anymore. It's not on your electrolyte panel. It is the most important electrolyte mineral in your body. It's not even on your electrolyte panel. So
Wow.
yeah, I have a hard task because I have to educate doctors and patients and consumers. That's why in the book, and I think you have an earlier edition, Tina, there's a newer edition out that people will come across. And in the new edition, I just go, I start to get really annoyed. And I talk about the way drugs are depleting the magnesium. And I talk about my 10-year search for a magnesium that does not cause a laxative effect. Because I think what happens in magnesium therapy is a lot of doctors, they're using a magnesium oxide, which is only 4% absorbed. The other 96% floods the intestines, causes diarrhea, so people stop taking it.
Yes, that actually happened with my mom. I started to tell her magnesium, and I was like a big magnesium cheerleader, but of course I couldn't explain everything, and I was just new to it. But she's like, oh, I've tried magnesium, and I can't, it sends me to the bathroom, and it hurts my stomach, and, and then I would tell her. So then I got into kind of not fully understanding it, but I would say, well, what about getting magnesium into you? And I sounded all like scientific, transdermally. I was like, through your skin. Then you absorb it through your largest organ, and then, and I'm trying to explain it. That way you don't have to take it, and, you can't just go and buy a bottle off the shelf. That magnesium is not the same. That's not what we're talking about. So, can you tell us, I know it's hard because you have a whole book and, decades of research, but can you tell us just a little bit more about this mineral called magnesium, and just a little bit of a background so we understand why you say 80% of the population may be deficient in it, because that's a very large amount of people to be deficient in something so vital to our bodies.
Right, yes, good point. I kind of leapt right into the middle of magnesium, but magnesium is necessary for over 700 to 800 different enzymatic systems in the body. And that, I don't mean pancreatic digestive enzymes, I mean physiologic processes in the body. The most important may be the Krebs cycle that makes ATP, which is adenosine triphosphate, which is your energy molecule. So in order to get energy, you need magnesium. In the Krebs cycle, there are 8 steps. 6 of those steps require magnesium.
Wow.
So to me, it is just, again, criminal that doctors don't realize that. And when especially a woman comes in and says, I'm tired, I'm fatigued. I mean, men don't do that. Men just go to the gym, drink more beer, rah, rah, rah. They'll never admit to being fatigued until they fall over. So women are going to doctors saying, I'm tired, I'm not sleep. I'm going to list the different magnesium deficiency symptoms. I'm tired, I don't sleep, I feel tense, I feel anxious, I'm getting headaches, even migraine headaches. My throat goes into spasms sometimes when I get upset. I'm constipated. My muscles cramp up. When I stretch at night, I get a Charlie horse in my legs. I get anxious, and then my heart starts pounding and then even goes irregular. All these are magnesium deficiency symptoms. So what is a doctor going to do? Once you get past 2 symptoms, they'll say, book another appointment. So for your first 2 symptoms, what were they? The fatigue and the insomnia. Oh, you're depressed. Oh, you need an antidepressant. You're not sleeping. Oh, you need this sleeping pill. So you got those first 2 drugs, first 2 symptoms. You come back. Oh, you've got muscle cramps. Oh, you need this Flexerol. You need a muscle relaxant.
Oh my God! And then you're mixing everything.
Seriously, I mean, you've got migraines. Oh, you really need some heavy-duty drugs for migraines. Asthma. That's another symptom of magnesium deficiency. Here's an inhaler. Now, the unfortunate part is most of these drugs will cause, well, all of them will cause magnesium deficiency to a certain extent. but a lot of the commonly used drugs have fluoride molecules attached to them now. They started adding fluoride to drugs to make them stronger, to make them go inside cells to a higher percentage. Like the fluoride makes the drug fat soluble. Each cell has a fatty coating, a fatty membrane. So to get inside the cells, to make the drugs work better, stronger, and to my mind have more side effects, they added fluoride. And fluoride binds magnesium irreversibly. And then that compound, the magnesium fluoride compound, will bind to bones and cartilage and tendons. And what we have now is an epidemic of fluoride drug causing tendon rupture. I don't know if you've ever come across Ciprofloxacin is an antibiotic with fluoride molecule attached. And people, especially younger people, athletes, people who sweat out a lot of magnesium, because that's how you can lose magnesium as well, they will take Cipro for a sore throat or something, which is usually viral, and they don't need an antibiotic anyway. They'll take Cipro, and if they're very magnesium deficient, the Cipro grabs the rest of their magnesium, and they start getting tense and muscle spasms, and they can actually rip tendons. You rip your Achilles heel tendon, and you're going to have trouble walking for the rest of your life. So it's a very serious problem with it. I don't know how I got here, but
No, it's okay. It's beautiful. It's just flowing, and while you're talking, I'm trying to stay present, but I'm thinking to myself, I never knew. So I understood the dangers of fluoride. We've never used fluoride, toothpaste, and we wouldn't do fluoride at the dentist, and we've taken a lot of criticism and flack towards that, because I think people don't understand the dangers of fluoride. It's not common or mainstream, but to know that it's in, I know people who take antibiotics like Tic Tacs. Like, oh, I don't feel good, I'm going to get a Z-Pack. Like, everybody knows a Z-Pack. I mean, my kids have never been on an antibiotic, and they're 9 and 11.
All right.
So we've been very, very, blessed in our decision to focus on wellness and alternative methods of healing. So they don't even have that in their systems. But when I hear people how often they do it, and they say, I needed it. I couldn't have gotten better without it, and I couldn't, heal. And I think that we're just, so again, it comes back to just being so used to it. Everybody's just used to it. That's what you do. I mean, that's what you do. You don't feel well, you got to go to work. You got to take care of the kids. The kids have to be back in school. Like, everybody has to rush the healing for what they need to do in their lives, but they're really just masking it. And I think that's why people, well, you know more than me, you're the doctor, but yeah, so everything you said, and it's funny because that was my next question, was your list of 100 factors or symptoms, and you listed in my book that I have 68 categories that would inform someone that they have a magnesium, deficiency. So the very first question that people ask me, and that I wonder too, and now you mentioned that they do a magnesium test, but how, so if somebody knows that they are maybe experiencing one of those symptoms that you say could mean you have a deficiency, what's the best way for them to learn how to supplement? Because if they're not going to get tested or know how much they need, or all that kind of mentality, people think they need the baseline. Right.
I know we're judging supplements now as if it were a drug.
Yeah.
And we think, well, is it safe? I mean, it drives me crazy sometimes when someone will be on 8 different drugs and then ask me if magnesium is safe. And, I say, well, did you ask your doctor if your 8 drugs are safe? Because they could never say they are. Because, the average number of side effects in the drug world is about 120.
Per drug?
Per drug. Some of them are in the 200s. Just, wow. People reporting all this. But in terms of how do you know? Well, you already said the 80% of us are deficient. And why that is because the soil no longer has magnesium. Even organic farmers, if they don't put the magnesium and other minerals back in the soil, it's just not there.
So you're not getting it, you're not ingesting it in any way.
Correct. And I've even had the experience with young people who are into this raw food fad and the 140 ounces of green drink a day, and they think, oh, I'm getting all I need, and they come to me. I've had people on 140 ounces of green drink a day come to me with heart palpitations and leg cramps. I have given them my magnesium because I eventually had to invent something that was non-laxative, mainly for myself. So I give them my magnesium. They come back or phone me the next day. All my symptoms are gone. I can't believe I'm magnesium deficient. And that's the dilemma we're in with alternative practitioners, where they tell people to eat a good diet, but if it's not in the soil, there's no way it can get into a plant and then get into your body.
Right.
So
that makes sense.
We can say everybody's deficient. The other thing is the fail-safe of magnesium, I've already alluded to it, is diarrhea. If your body gets too much at once, it'll unload.
So it'll just...
And this is from an evolutionary perspective, which is really fascinating, because human culture grew up around oceans. Ocean water has 3 times the magnesium as it does calcium. So you're bound to get a lot more magnesium than calcium from your seaweed and your fish and all the rest of it. So what our efficient body did, God and nature and our body worked together to make sure that you had a fail-safe if you had too much magnesium, and a fail-safe to make sure you grabbed on enough calcium. The calcium grabber is vitamin D. Oh. So what's happened in the past several years is this crazy fad of high-dose vitamin D supplementation. Vitamin D is not even a vitamin. It's a hormone. It will gauge where you are with your calcium. If you've got too much calcium in relation to magnesium, your vitamin D will be low. It will register low because you don't need to grab more calcium. So all of a sudden we've got doctors, whereas the RDA for vitamin D used to be 400 units, you have doctors now giving 50,000 units of vitamin D on prescription once or twice a week and say, oh, that'll take care of you. What it's done, because wow. I get the blowback from this, because my magnesium deficiency patients who are being taken care of by the right amounts of magnesium, they'll get on this prescription and they'll find that their magnesium deficiency symptoms come back with a vengeance. I had one woman who had a 6-week migraine. Another woman said her son had seizures when he started the vitamin D. Now, that's not going to happen to everybody, but people should be aware that when you take vitamin D, you grab the calcium, but in order for vitamin D in the supplement form or the storage form to turn into the active form, it requires a lot of magnesium. So all that vitamin D takes all this magnesium and then makes you deficient. So it's the craziness of doctors intervening with something that's out of balance. It's the same story the past 20, 30 years with calcium. What woman hasn't heard, past age 40, you got to take your calcium?
Yes, and it's so funny because I love how our conversation is going. Everything is flowing into my next question. That's exactly what I was going to ask you about. I walk around saying this, everybody talks about calcium, and I say I researched, I don't know if it's totally accurate, but maybe you can confirm, that our country, who has the got milk ads and everything with calcium, has the highest rates of osteoporosis. And, my parents are getting older and they're saying it's just normal to lose, they're going for like bone density tests and it's just normal to lose bone density and we have to take our calcium. And So here, my question was, I said, I read that all our efforts to focus on calcium are really quite a waste without including magnesium. And with all the focus on, calcium, without the magnesium, it's not helping them in any way, which at some point somebody would say, well, why are we having all these problems then if we're drinking our milk and we're taking our calcium supplements and things like that? It just would make sense. But when you answer that, I have one more question about the laxative, the diarrhea effect that can happen, because I wonder, like when my mom said that she took magnesium and it caused her stomach to hurt and she had to go to the bathroom, that might make somebody think that that's the fail-safe kicking in, that they must have enough magnesium.
Good point.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So that'll be
right, and that will throw a person off too. And that's where my research in the past few years has gone to finding a non-laxative magnesium.
Okay.
I tried to get companies involved for the past 10 years and they weren't interested, so I finally created my own. And I realized I had to create a magnesium. Certainly it's not all me, it's the chemists and the manufacturer. I call it a picometer-sized magnesium. Tiny, tiny sized magnesium, but the more important thing almost is that the magnesium ions are stabilized, so they're small enough and they're stable enough to be absorbed directly into the cells. And once I had people using the Remag, including myself, because I would take one pill of magnesium and get the laxative effect. So I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that I wasn't saturated, because I was still palpitating away and had my leg cramps.
Okay, so that was the clue, though, that you right. did it and you had the laxative effects, but you still had the symptoms. So you were not getting the help you needed.
Exactly. So just like you're saying, though, even doctors will say, natural medicine doctors will say, oh, if you get diarrhea, then you've got enough. And what I started doing was getting people to do a magnesium RBC blood test, red blood cell test. It's a bit better than the serum magnesium. It's not perfect, but it's a guide. Everybody was low. And even there, Tina, I have to educate people, because the range in the laboratories will say that you could be 4.2 milligrams per deciliter to 6.8. And if someone came back at 4.2, they'd say, oh, you're okay.
Because they're within the numbers.
Like we were saying, if 80% of people are deficient, then that's a measure of the deficient population. And what you want to be is at the top of the range, where the last 20% of people are. So I tell people, get your RBC magnesium. Make sure you're 6 or 6.5 instead of 4.2. And just use that as a guide. But your major guide is your clinical symptoms.
Right.
If you've got insomnia and you're taking magnesium for insomnia and you still, aren't sleeping quite as much as you should, take more magnesium. But that becomes a problem if you have diarrhea. That's why I invented my Remag. Yeah, I call it Remag, RE_MAG. And what I've even found with it is if someone's been on intravenous magnesium, because actually that's where the real deficient people end up. If they take their improperly absorbed magnesium oxide, they get diarrhea right away. The doctor says, oh, well, you'll have to come in for IV magnesium. They're coming into the doctor paying, $100 or more for the IV, however many dollars for the appointment. Huge amounts of money, 2 and 3 times a week. They get this surge of magnesium. They lose a lot of it in the urine when they take too much at once in the IV. And they may feel well for a day or so, and then they go low again. But if you can take something like my Remag every day, I tell people, put it in your water, sip it through the day. I get people to put sea salt in their water as well for the other minerals. I also have a multiple mineral, but I cannot tell you the amazing testimonials, the results that people get with magnesium. I mean, if people have atrial fibrillation, they're on 3 or 4 different drugs, they start taking magnesium, their symptoms start going away. Even on drugs, people are having symptoms. And like you said earlier, Tina, that's a clue that it's not working for you. So anyway, that's the sidebar on the laxative effect. You can clinically get rid of your symptoms when you have the right magnesium that's absorbed properly. I have this one gentleman, even on intravenous magnesium, he had a permanent port in his arm. It kept getting infected. He kept getting blood clots. They wanted to put one in his neck. In the week while his arm was healing, while he was struggling with his magnesium deficiency, he started taking my Remag, and within a few days his blood levels had doubled because he was able to take something throughout the day. So anyway, with the right type of magnesium, then we can get rid of all these magnesium deficiency symptoms.
Right.
But it's only a small number of people who are learning this. The rest of the population, they're doing the wrong blood tests, taking the wrong magnesium, taking so many medications, it kind of neutralizes the effect. With the calcium story, oh my gosh. I mean, what happened there is it finally took 6 studies. They came out of New Zealand. They were published in the British Medical Journal, prestigious medical journal. And it showed that women who simply take calcium supplements are at a much higher risk for heart disease. So what was happening is calcium is only about 4% absorbed. You're taking chalk, you're swallowing chalk, but unlike magnesium, which has the fail-safe laxative effect, our body is tuned into grabbing all the calcium we can. So it grabs the calcium, and the excess precipitates in the intestines. You get constipation. In the arteries, you get heart disease. In the breasts, and you get calcifications that are misdiagnosed as DCIS, ductal carcinoma in situ. They call it a precancer, and it causes so much distress in women because the doctor on a mammogram sees a bit of calcification. That could be cancer, and they start doing biopsies and scaring women half to death and giving them more and more mammograms, which can have their side effects. So calcium is a problem. The RDA for calcium in the US is 1,200 to 1,500 milligrams. I don't buy that. I go by the United Kingdom and the World Health Organization RDAs of about 600 to 700 milligrams. And if you do it right, you can get that in your diet and not have to rely on pills that are only 4% absorbed. So that's my calcium story, and I'll stick with it.
I love it. I love that you're sticking to it. You know, it's just, and I really want to make sure that this comes out the right way, but what I'm feeling when I'm talking with you is I feel hopeful and empowered and excited and grateful, and so much great gratitude and appreciation for you that you have been willing to look into this and spend your life learning about it. And the thing is it drives me crazy when I see people, though I know their intentions are good, but I see people signing up for walks and signing up for runs and marathons to support, disease and all these things. And I love people coming together for a mutual, intention and what they're doing and everything like that. But I think if we can just, especially now with heart disease being so prominent among women, if we can just empower people with the knowledge, of their own bodies and their own cells and everything that you're saying to me, maybe, I have a little background because I did read your book, but also it just all makes sense to have the knowledge of your cells and how things work. And I remember I was on the pill, like in my 20s. And I remember I would take this little pill, but every time I got the package, in the beginning I would just throw out the paperwork and throw out the box and you keep the package. One time I just looked at it and I went like this and I thought it's going to open, but it went like that. And it kept going and going and going. And I came out to my, my husband, who was not my husband at the time, and I would say, I don't know about this thing, because this, it says I won't get pregnant, but I have like, 100 other things that can happen to me if I take this little tiny pill, like, I don't know about the risk that I'm doing here. Like, so I have always been wondering, and it sounds like you've always been wondering too, which is why, you were able to learn all these different modalities and things like that. But I would just imagine, and what I want people to know is that if they can relieve, without our health, we have nothing. I told you off the air a health issue that I had yesterday, which is so rare. And when you don't have your health, you have nothing. You have, right? And so it affects so many of us. Yeah. These symptoms are oftentimes debilitating. So the fact that modern medicine is not always helping or giving us the relief we need, it just makes sense to learn more about something else.
Absolutely, because what I call it allopathic medicine. Allopathic medicine has become allopathetic medicine because they just want to suppress the symptoms.
Yeah.
And then the drugs that are used cause more symptoms.
Well, it's like whack-a-mole. You put one down and then 3 pop up.
Right. Yes, and then, one thing that I want to pop in here, and it's probably your next question, is how other minerals are affecting us and what is their impact. And what I see in women, especially when they've had children, is that their thyroid is strained. The thyroid requires 9 minerals. One of them is magnesium. One of them, we've all heard about iodine. But if you take iodine without selenium, you're not going to get too far. You also require zinc and manganese and copper. So what has happened with the whole thyroid situation is we're not getting enough minerals. The thyroid gets weak. We go to a doctor. And if your blood tests show it, they'll put you on synthetic thyroid hormone. They won't even think about minerals. Even alternative doctors, instead of synthetic thyroid, they think they're doing a great job because they'll give a natural thyroid.
I was on the pig one, for quite a while.
Yeah. Armor thyroid.
Thyroid.
They'll jump right to the hormone and treat you as a hormone deficiency instead of a mineral deficiency.
Yeah. So
we've really lost track of what's going on with the body because it's like in medicine, they wait until you're sick enough before they'll give you the hormone. They'll wait until your menopause symptoms are really severe before they'll give you estrogen, instead of giving you the minerals that your body's crying out for. The adrenal glands, they're right in there too. There's the triad of thyroid, adrenals, and sex hormones. Especially mothers these days, they're very stressed out, very multitasking, taking care of their partner and the kids and probably working a job and taking care of their parents. And the adrenal glands get strained. And what happens when your adrenals are firing all the time? They use up magnesium. They cause you to feel hyper and tense and maybe anxious even. And then you end up, as I said before, in the doctor's office on Xanax or some anti-anxiety medication. And what you do need is your minerals. So I'm just big on minerals. There are other things in the world too, but this is the focus of our talk right now.
Right. Yes. No, I know there's lots, but important to start somewhere, right? To step outside the box.
Totally. I mean, if you don't take anything else from this conversation, think about magnesium and go and take an Epsom salts bath. You don't even have to put anything in your mouth. Take 2 cups of Epsom salts and a nice medium hot bath, and you will feel wonderful. And then translate that feeling into giving you enough of a good sleep and then enough energy the next day to look into magnesium.
Right.
And think about taking it by mouth.
So there's, we've gotten the ancient minerals, magnesium flakes, and then there's magnesium oil, and then I also know of this product like at natural food stores like Whole Foods called Natural Calm, which is a magnesium supplement. And I learned about that years ago. And that for me has had a laxative effect, that Natural Calm, if you take too much or take what they say. So we stuck with the baths, and I've tried the oil. So I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about your products, because I know you have your own wellness program. And is it true? I think I saw you have 6 products in all.
Well, it's really 4
products?
Products by mouth, and then there's a skin product as well.
Okay.
So I've narrowed it down to Remag, which is the magnesium, Remite, M-Y-T-E, which is the multiple mineral. It has 12 minerals, and the 9 of them support the thyroid. But it's not just the thyroid mineral. There's Realign, which is the gentle detox, and the methylated B vitamins. And the detox is there's an amino acid called methionine, which is a precursor to glutathione. And what your body does when it wants to detox is it makes glutathione. So I realized how important glutathione was many years ago when I was working with autistic kids. And these poor kids were getting intravenous glutathione and intravenous vitamins and minerals. So I was looking for something that you could take by mouth. So methionine is a precursor to glutathione. And what I say is when you're taking it in your body can decide whether it wants to use that methionine at that time to make glutathione. Are you ready to detoxify? Because most of the time, when you go to the doctor for a chelation or glutathione or something, you're forcing a detoxification. So again, it's back to my giving the building blocks so the body can do its work. And in Realign, as I said, there's the methylated Bs. That's huge now because the sicker the population is getting and the more alternative doctors out there, the more testing they're doing. They're doing all these crazy genetic tests and telling people, oh, you have 100 different gene problems. Right. It's like, man, I don't want to know that. What am I going to do with 100 different gene problems? Right. And I know I'm being facetious here and a bit sarcastic, but even the MTHFR, this folate deficiency problem, a genetic problem with the folic acid, and you should have a methylated folic acid, which we have in Realign. Even that is defined by the enzymes around that gene. And we call it epigenetics, and I know you mentioned epigenetics on your website, so you know what I'm talking about. So epigenetics is what the environment around the genes. The biggest epigenetic factor is magnesium.
Really?
So if you have enough magnesium, you can often get around all these little gene SNP problems. And so that's where I say to people, don't spend a lot of money on getting gene testing, because what can you do about it then? Just worry that, oh, now I have a gene problem. And that's where testing is at right now. There's no gene therapy that's ever worked. You cannot go into your body and snip a gene out and make things better. Gene therapy has never worked. I don't know if it will, because it's not about the genes. It's about the environment around the genes that turns them on or off. And that's what we're manipulating when we're taking our minerals, taking our B vitamins. My 4th product is RNA drops. It's a non-gluten barley product. And I mean, I don't know if we have any time to get into this, but you'll be very interested in this. It's based on a water purifier made from grains that I got the recipe from this scientist 40 years ago. I've been trying to make it all these years. And then 5-6 years ago, a friend of ours started seeing ghosts and seeing through windows into other worlds. And he has a spiritual gift. He grew up in the church, so it's called a spiritual gift. And he began working with us on this water purifier. Instead of a little tiny ice cube size water purifier made in cement, he wanted us to build a 400-pound block to purify lakes and streams. So we began making it, and it requires making it with barley sprouts. The liquid from the barley sprouts, people in the factory started saying it was making them feel better and healthier and having a bliss state, and who needs to meditate anymore? Just take these drops. So after a while, we really listened to them, started testing it in and among our friends, and finally realized that, well, along with the Remag and Remite and everything, we should be selling this RNA drops. Actually, it came, it sort of began my decision to not just use my Remag for myself. But anyway,
I'm sorry, go on.
I was just going to, it's a lot to take in. I mean, people can go to another of our websites, which would be the best one.
I'll list all of them afterwards too. But go ahead and tell us. Yeah, you can tell us if you want.
Yes, howionic.com, because we call our friend, whatever comes through him from non-physical, we call ion, and like ionization. But there's so much to this ion phenomenon. I never thought, after being in medicine these 40 plus years, that I'd be talking about non-physical and entities, but it really resonates with our time where people are looking for more.
Right.
They're searching for something beyond the third dimension. They know there's more. We know we're responsible for our own reality. And in a small G sense, we are our own God. And the more we make ourselves less than and don't realize that we're in charge, the more we will let doctors take over our health. So yes. All the things that you've expressed today, Tina, on your website, everything you're talking about is what I'm experiencing with this ion phenomenon. So it is fascinating, because it's like you are responsible for your health and your reality. Some people have a hard time with that, and they'll say, well, I didn't want to give myself multiple sclerosis or some horrible disease, but there's an aspect of health that we do have to take responsibility for. When we do that, when we understand the message, and then in my world, these 4 basic products give you the building blocks to be able to, in a sense, with the RNA drops, you get out of the labyrinth of your crazy mind that's trying to, critique you and put you down all the time. And you say, yeah, anything is possible. And then with the minerals, totally the most important foundation for the building blocks for the body, because every cell needs minerals. And what I want to say now is that when I mentioned about drinking water with sea salt and my Remag and Remite, when you get the right hydration, the right amount of water, the right amount of minerals into your cells just hum. It is all about cellular health. When the minerals are in your cells, they pull water in after them. Then the cells work to do all their metabolic functions. So when people say to me, oh, I drink water all the time and it comes out the other end. When you drink water with the right minerals, the H2O in the cells becomes something else. And you're not urinating everything out. You're properly urinating out waste. You're not getting up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom. You're not running to the bathroom every half hour. And your minerals are staying in your cells and helping create good, healthy, perfect cells, which is another aspect of what the RNA drops. So yeah, I'm totally thrilled that, at this stage of my life when I should be retiring, but I never will, that I've ended up being able to, have a blossoming like the lotus flower into, a kind of a perfect protocol for people where they can take charge of their health and be as healthy as they know they should be.
And people feel so powerless. So I have two questions. One is going to be about your products, but before that, I was going to say, so our whole family is vegan, even the kids. And we became vegetarian because of our girls. That's another story I'll share with you. But basically, they wouldn't eat anything that they told me had a mama or eyes.
Oh, yeah.
So, we have a bunch of funny stories about that, but we became vegetarian, and then, soon after we started to learn, watch some documentaries, and also learn about going plant-based, and even just trying it for ourselves once in a while here and there to see how we felt. And, I grew up watching my mom, I hope she doesn't mind me telling, but, and she'll watch this too, drinking Lactaid, or before she would eat dairy, she would take this Lactaid pill, and it always... Well, I was always interested in medicine. I wanted to be a doctor. I was always interested in nursing, and I really couldn't embrace math in any way when I was in school. So I just put it to the side, but I've always had an interest. That's why I've been studying the epigenetics and everything that you mentioned. From the physical side, from the non-physical side, everything that you've talked about, I'm on board with. And where was I going with that? Oh, and I just thought to myself, it's just so odd. Like, what if she just didn't have dairy? Like, does she really need it? Like, how would she feel if she just didn't take the pill and didn't eat it? And didn't ingest it and things like that. And I remember one time she called me and said, I don't understand my stomach. I'm totally sick. I'm having a problem, but I said, what did you eat? And one time she said to me, all I had was like marinara sauce or something. And I went to the store and I looked at the ingredients and I said, your tomato sauce has Parmesan. So, we became major label readers. I mean, even my daughters will go to the store and read the labels. And so for us, even becoming plant-based was very important because, I'm on a mission to empower and to lead and to raise awareness. And so for us, that raised awareness because we now had to become super hyper aware of what we were ingesting. So, learning what was in our food and flipping it over and learning what ingredients were and, what they were called and what the names were. And same thing for medicine. So I just say to you, if I look at your products, I sort of right away, I feel like I need them all. Am I supposed to buy all 4 of them or, and take them daily? Are all 4 of us supposed to take them? My husband and the kids.
Well, it's the way to go about that, Tina, is on the website for the products, RNA Reset, because we're resetting the RNA and DNA with these products. RNA Reset, under the FAQ or the info link, are 2 free ebooks, one on the Remag and one on the Remite. So it gives the protocol, it talks about how much water and how to slowly start into the program. And some people will just do the Remag and Remite, but then if there's some toxicity issues, the Realign for sure. And the RNA drops, there's a sample bottle on the website because we tell people it's an expensive product, but it's really worth it. But there's a $15 sample bottle, and you can just start with a couple of drops a day. A couple of drops of a barley juice, some people might think, well, that's nothing. This stuff has been growing for years. It's in its 120th generation.
Wow. And that's safe for kids and adults.
Pardon me?
Kids and adults can do those drops?
Children usually don't need them.
Okay.
So we tell, if not your children wouldn't need them. They're already blissed out. Okay. It's children who have health problems that the parents start using them. But what we say about the RNA drops around children, if the adults are taking them, they're exhaling the goodness of the drops, and the children are in the environment and getting them. So the RNA...
Oh, I'm sorry, I was just going to say, what about anxiety in children? Because I know a lot of people have that.
It's magnesium, number one. It's magnesium.
And with, I want to hear what you have to say, but it keeps sparking so many things. so many parents, they're just people in general, but in my realm, I would say parents, the kids are just always sick, and then they go back to school and like, oh, we're back to school, we're back to germs. It's natural that they get sick. And people tell me, it's my kids get less sick because they're not in school, they're not with germs. And I say, yeah, but they do classes, we go to Disneyland, we go to Target, we go to the grocery store. Like they're still out in the world and among everything. But I think that people just become accepted, in acceptance, like they say on average, kids get 8 to 10 ear infections, or things like that, and then they start to be okay with it. Like, well, they're gonna get it.
Well, but it begins. I have it in a number of my books. I have this list of the decline of our health, and it does begin with vaccinations in children. Well, it begins in the womb if the mother is not well.
Right.
If the mother has yeast, if you have yeast when you're pregnant, and the child can be born with yeast. And I had a child once, 10 months old, that had been on about 10 antibiotics. Every month a new antibiotic for ear infections. And the child came in, the ear smelled of yeast.
Oh, wow.
He was having a yeast ear infection. Wow. And the antibiotics were just making the yeast worse. I mean, that's a whole other topic.
I know, I feel like we could have a show a week and really have a million. We could have a show a week and not run out of stuff to talk about.
No.
I have a friend who, her son has Crohn's, and he's like 9 or 10 years old. We're seeing these amazing epidemics,
younger and younger.
Yeah.
And then they get they're getting the antibiotics, they get yeast, they get all the vaccinations. Well, yeah, day one of birth, kids are getting hepatitis vaccinations as if they're a drug addict. Wow. And that their immune system then gets lower and lower and lower. But even so, I have a patient. She came to me with her 2 young sons, sick all the time. What should I do? What should I do? And, the yeast-free diet and the supplements. And then she wrote a book. It's on my website under the book list. I think it's called the Healthy Kids Cookbook.
Oh, wow.
And it's just getting them off the junk food and the food that grows yeast. And sometimes that's the number one thing that parents just don't have the time for, and it doesn't get done. They'll just keep going to the doctor and getting more drugs. But when your kids are sick enough and where you're determined enough, then you'll change the diet. It begins with the diet, and then there's my Remag and Remite. Usually that and some vitamin C is the basics of what kids need. But in all my literature, my information, my blogs and everything, I pretty much lay it out. And I do have a Monday radio show as well, where it's for 2 hours. It's a call-in show. And I take questions. I used to do telephone consults. I don't have the time anymore. And quite frankly, what I found is if I can get people taking my 4 products and drinking their water and doing the basics, they don't need a consult with me. They've got it all. So after, as I said, about 40 years trying to get people to listen to me, I've finally found the combination of things where I can just say, take these, take these, and then call me when you've experienced your miracle.
Yes, and that's the best part of it. I love it. So I myself want to look into your those products as well, and get my family started on it. And it's just we have so many epidemics, of depression and anxiety and cancer and diabetes and heart disease, and kids are being put on medication so young. Right. Which I think is messing with their entire development. And a big focus of my work is emotional intelligence and emotional health.
Right.
But it's like you're trying to teach people and increase their emotional intelligence, but they're drugged up. They're not even in their right mind, and their brains are not even fully developed.
Yes.
So they're just being bombarded with.
Well, I know when I lived and worked in New York, one of our patients in the chronic fatigue AIDS program, she was an after-school teacher, and the 12 of the 12 of her after school class were on Ritalin.
Oh
This
my
is
God.
New York, upper middle class. They just put their kids on drugs. So then a child grows up thinking that that's the way to deal with their health and mental, emotional, and health problems is to take a drug. So yeah, it's a very tricky situation. I mean, I was so happy to hear that you're homeschooling your girls, because I think that's the safest thing that you can do with children these days. Although again, who has the time or the money to do that? So your kids are very blessed to be able to be homeschooled.
Yes, I know we have been very much. And it was hard to do because my mom was a teacher her whole life and my aunt was a teacher. And so all in all, and my stepdad is a pharmacist, so I've been kind of going again.
Yeah.
I've been kind of going upstream since I had my kids. But, I'm 41, 41 and a half. Mm-hmm. And I want to ask you about magnesium deficiency. You know, I remember publicly when Oprah was going through perimenopause and all of these issues that she had. You know, so thinking about that age group, about women, and Dr. Christiane Northrup, I follow her a lot, and she just wrote a book about not aging. And so magnesium is helpful there as well for perimenopause and menopause symptoms.
Absolutely. And perimenopause, that's just an invented word. Oh. There's no such thing.
Oh.
Some doctor invented it. Someone told me that they were at a conference where he came up with this word. And it's just to medicalize women and their processes. I mean, we have our puberty, and we have our PMS, and then we have menopause. So they stuck in the perimenopause, and maybe it's part of what we're talking about in terms of the diet is so messed up. People don't even drink water anymore, or they'll drink soda because it's cheaper than water. So they're getting all that sugar or the artificial sweeteners. Everything is so messed up. And then the stress that we're under, when your adrenal glands are under a lot of stress, you'll look back at what I said about the triad of the thyroid, adrenals, and sex hormones. If your adrenals are stressed, they'll put a strain on your sex hormones. So you will go into premenopause symptoms just because you don't have the right balance in your body. Your thyroid then, I mean, if your thyroid is low, your metabolism is all slowed down, so you're not even making your hormones properly. I mean, everything is so intricately connected. And that's why when people say yes, when they go on a clean diet, or when they take a few good supplements, they'll start to feel better. And it doesn't, for a lot of people, it doesn't take much, but I've been dealing with these questions since my first day of practice, 1979, and people are getting sicker and sicker because most people are going to the doctors for their drugs,
right,
instead of going back to the basics of a good diet. But I've already said, but agriculture is not working with us because they're not mineralizing the soil. I mean, I'm getting involved here in Maui with a farm to ensure that we keep the good farm practices so that we can keep having organic food that has good minerals in the soil. I mean, we really have to make this effort on all levels, but in the meantime, until we can get it all in our food, then I'm recommending my protocol with the Remag, Remite, the Realign to detoxify the crazy chemicals in our environment, and the RNA drops to make perfect cells, get our chromosomes working properly, and get our mind out of the worry state. I mean, we had 3 hurricanes converging on Maui this past month, and my husband and I just kept saying, well, the sky may fall, but it's not going to fall on us. We never had a peep of a problem with supposedly 3 hurricanes.
Wow.
I know other people, they may have gotten some high seas and whatever, but they just, moved off into the beyond. If you can create that in your environment, if you don't want to have a drought, you don't have to have a drought. I know I'm being a bit, fantastic talking here, but this is what you can do in your life. You can have a fantastic life.
Yes, and I teach and study all that for the last 20 years, and I love that, and I love that you're on board with that, because it starts here. But if you're deficient, your here is not even, functioning properly, right? So it's like you're not even thinking clearly to rewire your brain or unlearn or relearn, new processes or new thoughts to have, because, your body kind of has to get in order first.
Right. Yeah, I just missed my mouth there with my drink. So
oh God, it's because you were talking about all the high seas and all the water, probably.
I know, right? I just drowned myself.
Right. You're like, there's no drought. There's no drought. I have so much water I can spill it. That's so funny. Oh my God. Well, I love talking to you, and I know your time is limited because it's 12:30, and you have to go on your end. But I was just gonna say, I think if at most, if we can just help people, empower them to speak up, and I think people are afraid to go to the doctor, and what happens when you go to the doctor and they say like, oh, are you taking your medicine, and they'll be like, no.
I know.
I'm taking this thing called magnesium, and so I think it's scary for people, but I think this is a wonderful introduction showing them the benefits of it, and you have so much information in your how many books have you written? Like 30 some books?
Yes, I think you have an old bio. 33 books, 110 Kindle books.
Okay, so you're going to have to, you'll give me all the updated information. I will list everything on our website and more. And you have many ones that you can purchase, but you also have your blog and your radio show. And there's really no excuse for people not to get empowered nowadays. They don't have to spend a dime to start to learn about it.
Right. There's so much free information, but what I'm saying to people is, I've been at this for over 40 years, so I've created an information package in the sense that I think you can rely on. If I don't know the answer, I want to know why. So that's where I'm open to people calling the radio show and asking me anything, so that I can give a balanced view about what's going on in this world. I was around before supplements were even in health. There were no health food stores back in the day. And now it's become so commercialized that, again, it's very frustrating. I get clients or people on the radio show. One lady told me she was taking 300 to 500 supplement pills a day.
Oh my God.
Prescribed by a nutritionist.
Wow.
And maybe some of them were tiny, and she'd take 10 of one and 10 of another, but man, I couldn't believe it. And it did mess her up. Because
just too much of anything.
Yes.
Well, and it wasn't focused. It was probably coming from a place of fear, which didn't help either. Right. Fear that she needed to get everything and have everything, and that would bring the health. Well, I use a pendulum. So that's actually a wonderful metaphysical tool that we use, and we do muscle testing. My kids do it. They know it.
I do the O-ring testing for my muscle testing.
Oh, wow. I don't even know that. I just know the arm one. And I mean, we do that like all the time. So my kids will say like, wow. Can I have another cookie? And I'm like, I don't know. Let's muscle test it. Because I don't want to be the one who decides how much they should have or what. They have to learn to get in tune with their bodies, so they can make good decisions as they grow. But anyway, I've so enjoyed our time. I feel like I have so much more that I want to talk to you about, but we can always do it on another show in the future. Sure. And I thank you for all your work and all your research and everything that you have done, and for being with us on the show today. And I will have links. You'll send me everything also, so that I have everything updated. And I know you have 4 Facebook pages, and we'll have all of that information about the benefits and the miracles of magnesium. I recommend your book and your information to everyone to empower themselves and and visit your community and learn about your completement program and everything that you offer. So I can't thank you enough, and I've so enjoyed our time. And
Yes,
I want to say namaste
great.
to you.
Namaste and aloha. Thanks, Tina.
Aloha to you.
Yeah,
Thank you
it's so
so
sweet.
much.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye now.
Bye.